Readers are meaning detectives, and we have been working hard in fiction to think about the meaning of a text. Now, fiction books all have certain things in common. Let's look at what some of those things are. We know that fiction means fake, not real. So books about dragons or fairy princesses or volcanoes that talk or that have bunnies in it that wear clothes, those would be fiction texts. Fiction texts have some things in common that nonfiction texts, not fake stories, books that are informational and meant to teach you something, don't have. So fiction books have characters in them. You learned yesterday that characters are people or animals in a story that talk and walk. It's who the story is about, right? Could be an animal too. In nonfiction, there are no characters. You might be learning about people or things, but there aren't characters that the story is about. Characters are only in fiction. Another thing that fiction has that nonfiction does not have is a setting. We don't talk about setting when we talk about nonfiction. Nonfiction is all about the things, the real things that we're learning. But in fiction, we talk about how there are characters, the people or animals that the story is about, and the setting, which is time that the story takes place and where it takes place. It's a map. So fiction books have characters and they have setting. They also have a beginning, a middle, and an end, which we've been talking a lot about in the last couple weeks. In a nonfiction book, there really isn't a beginning, middle, and end. In a nonfiction book, you can kind of read the chapters or the parts in any order you want. You're just learning about different things. Sometimes the author wants you to read the nonfiction text in a certain way because it makes more sense. But in a fiction text, you have to read the story in order. You have to figure out what happens in the beginning, in the middle, and the end. Because if you start a story at the end, you're going to have no idea what happened. So a fiction text is different from nonfiction because it has characters, setting, a beginning, middle, end. And a lot of fiction books also have a problem and solution. Now, you'll find that different fiction writers make different fiction books different, but most fiction books have a problem and a solution. So the characters in the story have some sort of problem that they have to solve, and then they usually find a way to solve it by the end of the story, and that's what makes the story good. So a few days ago, we read Creepy Carrots by Aaron Reynolds, illustrated by Peter Brown. Let's see if we can find the characters, the setting, the beginning, middle, and end, and the problem and solution in Creepy Carrots. So I remember that in the beginning of Creepy Carrots, Jasper really liked to eat carrots. And it showed lots of pictures of him picking carrots from Kraken Hopper Field. So I'm going to say that these first couple pages are the beginning, where we learn that he really likes those carrots and that he's eating a lot of them. The middle is all of the parts where the carrots are following him and Jasper is feeling afraid. And then the end is when Jasper comes up with a plan to stop the carrots, and he builds the fence around them, and then the carrots end up being really happy because they are the ones that really trick Jasper into keeping them safe. So that's the beginning and middle and end in my story. Did you notice that while I was talking about the beginning, middle, and end, I also talked about the characters in the story? So the character that happens the most in the story, that comes up the most, is on every page, is Jasper Rabbit. So I would say that he is the main character because he is really the person the rabbit who the story is all about. Other important characters are the creepy carrots themselves. But there were some other characters in there too, like Jasper's mom and Jasper's dad. So if I was going to write about the characters in this story, I would say that Jasper's the main character, the creepy carrots were some other important characters, and then Jasper's mom and dad were in the story too. What about the setting? Remember that the setting is where and when the story takes place. So I noticed that most of the story took place at either Krakenhopper Field or when Jasper was walking to school or home, or when he was at home. So it's kind of this Jasper's world is the setting. So how could I write that? And it doesn't really say when. I don't think there are really any clues in the story about what time of year. If the carrots were right, maybe it was fall time. So the story doesn't really say when. It kind of moves through the day and the night. So for the setting, I'm going to put Jasper's home and the field. And since it doesn't say when, I'm not going to put when because the book doesn't say when. Maybe I'll put fall with a question mark. So I've looked at the beginning, middle, and end of the story. I know my characters and my setting. So what about the problem and the solution? This is the sheet that you're going to use today to add to your reading notebook. You start by stating the main character. Well, in Creepy Carrots, the main character is Jasper Rabbit. Now, his problem in the story is creepy carrots are following him. Creepy carrots are following him. Notice how I'm using star letters, and I have no row capitals, and with a period. He solves it when he builds a fence to keep the carrots in. And then there's already a period. October 30th, comma. That's not a star O. The main character is Jasper Rabbit. His problem is creepy carrots are following him. He solves it when he builds a fence to keep the carrots in. Readers, remember that fiction is fake and nonfiction is real, and that fiction and nonfiction have different things in them. The writers of fiction text have characters, a setting, a beginning, middle, and end, and usually a problem and solution for the character. Today, you're going to be focusing on who the main character is and the problem and the solution that he or she has to solve. Make sure to fill this out with one of the books in your own book tab. Do not use Creepy Carrots. Choose your own fiction book. Obviously, you cannot choose a nonfiction book because nonfiction books do not have characters and they do not have problems and solutions. So you must choose a fiction book to do this. Happy reading!